Jansen will bring it up. Jansen the flip, trying to get it into the corner, went off Kavina's stick. Jeremy Roenick and Kavina collide. Roenick still with it. Gets it away to Gagne. Gagne for Roenick, lets it go. Primo draws it, side of the net. Roenick shot. It's gone! Simon Gagne! We've got a game 7!
Hey everybody, it's Isaiah, and I'm here with Chef B, who's going to tell us about one of our sponsors here. Chef?
Yeah, O&B Puckcast is now brought to you by Summit Public Adjusters. The winter months can be especially hard on our homes, from roof damage and peeling siding to frozen pipes and toilet overflows. Call Summit Public Adjusters before you call your insurance company. Dealing with your insurance company can be stressful and confusing. Let Summit Public Adjusters take the stress out of the claim process by having our guys work for you. Get the most for your money and your repairs. The next time the big snow or the rain leaves you with some home damage, contact us for a free consultation. Summit Public Adjusters are licensed in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Learn more at summitpublicadjusters.com or call 215-752-0560. Just tell them that the chef sent you.
Yeah, what was that number again, Chef?
215-752-0560.
That's terrific. All right, we're going to carry on with the rest of our show. And we are back. Yes, it is Isaiah, your host for the O&B Puckcast. We have an O&B special tonight with a special guest. We're brought to you, of course, by FlyersNittyGritty.com. Yeah, the trade deadline went by. It was an active one. It was a good one. It was productive for the Flyers. But we wanted to back off a little bit and take a little bit of a macro view, a league-wide view of what went down in the interim period, not just within the first couple weeks, or the last couple weeks, I should say, but just extending back as far as what makes sense in some cases, as you will find out. Tonight, it will just be myself as a chef, and the great Dan Silver have the night off. But joining me, and as a writer for Spector's Hockey.net, he also writes for Bleacher Report, Hockey News, and The Guardian on Prince Edward Island, a real special place. Lyle Richardson joins us. Lyle, thanks for taking time tonight.
It was my pleasure, Isaiah. Always happy to be on the show. Thanks for having me on.
Fantastic. Hey, let's take a look at, we're going to take this down to about 15 or 16 names that we think are the biggest trades that will have an impact as we look into the postseason, maybe going forward a little bit beyond that. And then we'll take a look at some teams that really helped themselves, and we'll talk a little bit about the Flyers, because after all, this is the O&B Puckcast. So let's get rolling with, let me see, why don't we start with Jason Zucker to the Predators. And, you know, he had a good year, not so much this year, but a year before. And the Predators are a very interesting situation, kind of like the Flyers, and like they want to build a little bit for today. We'll recognize they bring in Ryan O'Reilly. But what do you think of that move?
Well, right off the bat, it was a clear indication of how much Barry Trotz's thinking for the Predators has gone for this season. Of course, he's general manager of the Predators. And about a couple of months ago, there was kind of the feeling that even though they were, contending, jockeying for a wild card berth, that Trotz was going to be a seller, or maybe try to be a buyer and a seller. And his club went on to just a big time tailspin there back about a month ago, about 4 to 6 weeks ago. And so much so that they wound up canceling their little vacation trip to Las Vegas, to kind of get them to haul the players to haul their collective heads out of their butts. and it certainly worked because boy, have they been red hot ever since. And Trotz wanted to bring in some scoring. It was like, okay, I'm going to be a buyer now, and he got an affordable, pickup in Jason Zucker. I mean, he's a proven performer. His production's down a bit this season, but he was playing for one of the lowest scoring teams in the Coyotes. So I think he'll be a good pickup for them as a rental to help them for their little playoff push they're doing here now. As I said, he's got that experience both for regular season play down the stretch and in the playoffs. So yeah, a good veteran pickup. I don't think he's going to be sticking with them after this season, but I mean, this will also be a good way for Zucker as well to kind of burnish his free agent resume for the summer.
That's right, shopping the wares there. Let's take a look at Jake Allen to the Devils. There were some other moves that were supposed to happen, and they didn't quite come off. But Jake Allen seems like a consolation prize based on his latest body of work.
Yeah, well, I mean, and Jake Allen was coming from a difficult situation there in Montreal. They were carrying 3 goalies because they didn't want to risk putting Caden Primo on waivers to send him down. Excuse me. But over the course of the season, Primo really kind of proved himself as a worthy backup to Sam Montembeault, the starter in Montreal, and that made Jake Allen the odd man out. He still had another year left on his contract, but they couldn't go another year carrying 3 goalies. The Devils, yeah, they were trying to acquire Jacob Markstrom from Calgary. That fell through for a myriad of reasons we won't get into here. They kicked tires on guys like UC Saros in Nashville, Elvis Merzlikins out of Columbus they looked at, and there was even some talk they may have looked into Linus Ullmark in Boston as well. Ultimately, what they did here was basically Jake Allen was a stopgap measure, and I don't know if you were gonna mention as well, they're sending Vitek Vanacek to San Jose for Capo Kakkonen was the other goalie move that the Devils made.
Right.
Both of those are just kind of stopgap measures. Now, Jake Allen's going to be with them for next season as a backup, and he's a good backup. He's an experienced guy, very reliable. He's been with Montreal. He started out as Carey Price's backup. They brought him in there, and he was a really good guy, excellent in the room. So he'll be a good fit there for the Devils for their younger players, but they're just stopgap measures. He's Tom Fitzgerald, the Devils general manager. He's going to be going, in his own words, big game hunting for goaltenders this summer. He'll be probably revisiting his interest in Markstrom and maybe in a couple of other goalies, including perhaps Linus Ullmark as well.
Yeah, that's a player that was almost moved. There's a lot of rumors connected with that. We'll let other people delve into that. But one thing that you can count on is there's going to be a need for centers as we go into the playoffs to try to slot players properly as you're trying to match lines with some of these playoff teams. And Alex Wenberg was sent to the Rangers in a deal that he's not a very exciting player, but he is very dependable and very responsible playing for Columbus teams. And of course, what was it? Seattle.
Seattle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and as you said, I mean, no, he's not like a name that really pops, for most hockey fans, but those who follow the game a little more closely, he's a very reliable middle six center. He's very good two-way. He's got good scoring touch. He's not going to light it up at like a 30 or 40 goal guy, but I mean, he is a reliable in that regard. He's also very good defensively. He'll win faceoffs for you. It was a good move by the Rangers to kind of address that need because, of course, Philip Hedl is out for the season, and they really miss having him centering their third line. So, yeah, bringing in Wenberg is a good rental in that regard. They didn't address their need for a scoring right winger, but for the third year in a row, so they went with some other depth additions. But Wenberg was the big one, and I don't think he's going to hurt them at all. I mean, he provides that depth that they need on the third line that they were missing with Hedl being sidelined.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's a name that has some pop to it, a guy who's been an underachiever much of his career, but Anthony Mantha was having a hell of a good year for the Caps. He gets sent to the Golden Knights. It's not the first time we're going to mention them as we close in on things. But let's just start with him. He's a big, fast guy who doesn't always play 200 feet, but when he's got it going, he's really exciting.
Yeah, and as you said, to your point, I mean, he really kind of saved his career, I think, with the season he had. You know, over 20 goals with Washington, and doing it on a Capitals team that is definitely on the downturn. I mean, you know, they're transitioning towards younger players. You know, this is, you know, if this was 3-4 years ago, you'd say, you know, you could say, oh well, he just, you know, benefited from, you know, playing with guys like Nicholas Backstrom and Evgeny Kuznetsov. Well, Backstrom isn't there, and Kuznetsov, you know, he had his issues before he wound up moving on. But anyway, but Mantha, yeah, this is very much kudos to him for his improvement. If he does well with the defending Cup champions in Vegas, yeah, that'll help. You know, you want to talk about helping somebody's free agent resume. That will certainly work to his advantage. He should be a good fit there with Vegas. He'll provide some extra scoring pop for them. So yeah, that was a pretty good move by Vegas to kind of shore up their offense, because yeah, they've been really walled with injuries this year, and that's been having an effect. I really think they miss Riley Smith this season too, after trading him to Pittsburgh last year. So Mantha kind of comes in and helps kind of fill that role. At least you hope that he does down the stretch and in the playoffs.
Yeah, Riley Smith, kind of like an unsung hero kind of player, like a Marchessault until last year. Everybody knows Marchessault now.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Let's talk about Evgeny Kuznetsov and second chances and the Hurricanes taking a gamble.
Yeah, then that's definitely what this is, Isaiah. It is a gamble. I mean, Kuznetsov in his prime, which wasn't that long ago, I mean, he was one of the best centers in the league. And you know, the argument could have been made back during the Capitals' run to the Stanley Cup in 2018 that he should have won the Conn Smythe Trophy, because he was their leading scorer throughout the playoffs. He scored that big overtime goal that buried Pittsburgh. They finally got that monkey off their back. But he's had some issues on and off the ice in the last couple of years. Now he's come off the NHLPA Player Assistance program earlier this year, and we hope that, you know, that he got the help that he needs. He's getting a fresh chance, as you said, a fresh start with Carolina. If it works out, if he regains his form there, boy, oh boy, he'll provide a definitely an extra measure of offensive depth at center for the Hurricanes, because offensive depth has been the thing that has really hurt the Hurricanes in the playoffs in the last few years. It's why they haven't been able to get over that hump. So, you know, having a guy like Kuznetsov there, as I said, if he regains his form, he should be a big help for them at center.
Yeah. One of the other players, and this is stretching it to say it's in a trade deadline, but no doubt has had that impact. And the Winnipeg Jets moved very early and got Sean Monahan from the Montreal Canadiens. Talk about a team that played that like a fiddle, right?
My Lord. Well, very quickly, Canadiens general manager Ken Hughes, that was a masterclass on asset management, because he got a first-round pick when he acquired Sean Monahan. That was the price to take his contract at the time off the Calgary Flames' hands, because they were trying to dump salary to sign other players 2 years ago. And then 2 years later, he sends Monahan to Winnipeg for another first-round pick. I mean, I haven't seen stuff like that since Sam Pollock's heyday with Montreal as their general manager. That's Sam Pollock level stuff. Yep. But in terms of the Jets, this was a good acquisition for them. I mean, he's a solid two-way center, wins faceoffs, kills penalties. He's got a good scoring touch, excellent in the room. I mean, the Canadians loved him. The Habs. It was very noticeable after that trade that they really missed Sean Monahan in the room. You could really kind of see their level of play kind of sag a bit without him. So he's got that going for him as well, that leadership ability there. And it was the first indication, and I'm sure we'll be touching on more here as we go up the charts, that the Jets are going for it this year. They're going for the cup. It all started back in the fall when they re-signed Connor Hellebuck and Mark Scheifele, and this is just the continuation of it.
Yeah, but them and Carolina have this like baton death march of building and building and building, and then it just, some guys fall off. You know, they lose Bufflin and some other guys, but well, they're here now, and like you said, they're going for it now. So another team that's definitely going for it now will be up on anybody's list of teams that are most improved at the in the trade deadline period, are the Carolina Panthers. I was going to say that the Florida Panthers. And I got to tell you, I'm more of a hockey fan than I am a football fan, to be quite frank. So the Florida Panthers get Vlad Tarasenko, And he's a scorer. He's been looking to get out of Ottawa, although he wasn't bad there. He's showed that he's healthy enough and can still be productive.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, that was the whole reason he signed with Ottawa in the first place. It was a 1-year deal. It was really to just kind of, make himself kind of attractive to playoff contenders. If the Senators weren't in contention by that point, which of course they're not. And yeah, I mean, in his first game, I mean, he scores 2 goals with the Panthers. So right off the bat, I mean, they're already seeing instant production. But he's got that experience. He helped the St. Louis Blues win a Stanley Cup 5 years ago, so he's not that far removed from that. He still has that scoring touch. So I like that addition. He's a veteran guy. He knows what it takes. And again, that's a sign for the Panthers, another team that, I mean, look, they're first overall. They're going for it. They're in it to win it. So Tarasenko was a good pickup for them.
Yeah, they're trying to reverse that trend of teams that, don't win the cup to kind of fall off the next year, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen here.
No.
So the Oilers did not make real high profile ads, but they did get Adam Henrique and Sam Carrick from Anaheim. And just your take where those guys are going to slide in and slot in that lineup with the Oilers, who are also sort of going for it.
Well, they would have loved to have gone for it more, but they lacked the cap space to really make a big splash. But with Henrique, they got the best center who was available, in the trade market leading up to the deadline. I mean, Henrique, he hasn't been in the playoffs a lot because he's been with a Ducks team that has been rebuilding for a while, but he does have that playoff resume, especially earlier in his career with New Jersey when they went to the final in 2012. But he's a very reliable two-way center. He can also play left wing, so there's flexibility there. He's going in on their third line, centering there, but his ability to play on left wing gives them that flexibility. If they need him to move up to the second line, if an injury strikes up there, he can do that. Carrick is a checking line guy. He's gritty. He's physical. He plays that heavy type of game that you need in the playoffs when it starts getting a lot more physical. So he's a good pickup for them there as well. You're right. They didn't do much more, as I said. They would have loved to have added another defenseman, but they just didn't have the cap space to pull it off. But the Oilers, if they have good goaltending, if Stuart Skinner can get some level of consistency going, they definitely have the firepower to stage a deep run in the playoffs. So Henrique should help them out, and Carrick providing that kind of more physical style as well.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to have to have a lot of speed going through the neutral zone, draw a lot of penalties, and that'll really put their opponents on their heels, and they can ride that pretty far. I doubt if it's going to yield a cup championship. I think there's too much missing there, but I think they might, go further than maybe some others think. I mean, I think we know who their favorites are right now, but all right, let's get to one of the favorites in my book. Anyway, I picked them to win. I didn't anticipate that they would make as many moves. We're talking about the Colorado Avalanche. Let's first talk about Sean Walker. We'll get to the other trade a little bit down the line. So Sean Walker goes to the Avalanche. The Flyers get a first-round draft pick for 2025.
Yep.
And they also take the contract of Ryan Johansson. That's a whole situation we don't have to get into. And with the agent and Carter Gauthier and all that good stuff we just talked about on the show we did the other day. But Sean Walker, where he fits in with the Avalanche.
Oh, yeah. Well, Sean Walker basically replaces Bowen Byram, who was traded away. And I know we're going to get to that, but he's in there for that. But he's also a good addition. He was kind of a well-kept secret when he was playing with the Kings. There wasn't really too much known about him. If you were following the game, if you were from the East Coast or any fan of an Eastern Conference team, but he really came to the fore playing for the Flyers this year. He was an excellent fit, obviously, under Tortorella's system. And, a lot of people were very impressed with his performance, as evidenced by the Avalanche picking him up. And I think he's going to be a very good addition for them. He's got playoff experience as well. He's with the Kings the last 2 seasons when they got into the playoffs. So, having that experience, and of course, everything that he's learned, especially this year, playing with the Flyers and forming that solid, second pairing with Nick Seeler. I think that's going to work to his benefit, playing, for the Avalanche, especially, a team like the Avalanche that's just, so much star-studded players in the roster. I mean, yeah, he'll be an excellent fit there.
Yeah, I mean, with Sean Walker, obviously, playing with the Flyers, what we heard and what we noticed is he played bigger than his 5'11". So he's 5'11" and probably about 190. Now he's pretty solid. And the thing, he really was very comfortable playing at the pace that the Flyers played at, which is really not that much slower than what the Avalanche are known for. They're not, obviously the Flyers are not at that level, but as they say, the puck can be transported faster than anybody can skate. And he was so good at that. And in Tortorella's system, they joined the rush. They encouraged the defenseman to be like, Zach Werenski or Seth Jones when he was with Columbus, to join the play and to have that forward cover him. And his outlet passing was really good. And I think the other thing, and I'm not sure if they play a zone defensive coverage in their D zone with the Avalanche, but that was also something that fit Sean Walker better than what he was doing in LA. Yeah. So, and he was coming off an injury. I think he had an ACL and an MCL. So this is a guy who's ascending. They weren't quite sure what he was, and then he got hurt. So there you go. I mean, it's
and it's and it's definitely going to help. It's definitely going to help him as well heading to free agency. He's not going to have any problem getting himself a lucrative contract. And especially, like I said, because he's proven himself under Tortorella, one of the most demanding, but one of the most demanding coaches in the league. And if he goes and plays well for a team like the Avalanche, that, as you said, and it's fair enough to make that, prediction, Isaiah, that, they're a legit Stanley Cup contender. So, yeah, he's a good fit in there. And as I said earlier, he replaces Bowen Byram, who got traded away. Yeah, absolutely. They liked, Sean Walker from the very beginning. So it was tough to see him go because, we've seen what the Flyers have been since, but we'll get to that. But Tyler Toffoli goes to the Jets, and this guy's a rock-solid scorer, lots of playoff experience. Another example of the Jets really going for it. Absolutely. And that one was kind of a surprise as to where Toffoli wound up. It wasn't surprising that he got moved, over the couple of days leading up to it, when there was the talk of, well, they're having contract talks, but it seems to be kind of stalled. You kind of had the feeling that, he's going to be moving on. And man, people have asked me who don't really follow the game too much, what is it with Toffoli? He's supposedly so good, but he keeps moving. And it's circumstances beyond his control. It's not him. Trust me, when Montreal had him, they did not want to have to trade him away. They loved the guy, but they were rebuilding, and he just wasn't going to be able to fit into the plan. Once they got to where they needed to be, his contract was going to be over and he would be gone. So they had to trade him that way. That's why that was done. Calgary was just Calgary. That was just that weird. That's a whole different situation. But with New Jersey, they didn't want to lose him either. But they didn't want to risk losing him for nothing to free agency. So going to Winnipeg, terrific pickup. Another sign that Kevin Cheveldayoff, their general manager, he's going for it this year. Toffoli, he can score. He kills penalty. He is lethal shorthanded. He is one of the best shorthanded goal scorers in the league. So, he's a terrific pickup there. Very versatile. He can play either wing. So, that was one of the more exciting deals going for the deadline. And as I said, another indication that the Jets are going for it. They are not to be taken lightly in the playoffs.
Absolutely. Another team that's kind of really going for it, came out of the blue, doing better than most people thought, are the Canucks. And Elias Lindholm goes from Calgary to the Canucks. And there's a lot of strange circumstances around him going there. A, and B, what's happened since, and whether he was going to make it past the deadline in Vancouver.
Yeah, it was a strange scenario. Well, it was kind of rumored that he was going to be going to Vancouver, but it still seemed a bit like, oh no, come on, they already did earlier in the year the whole Zadorov trade. Nah, they're not going to go back to well, yeah, they did. Okay, fine. And I mean, it was a terrific addition for them, for the Canucks. Absolutely. Again, one of the better two-way centers in the league. You know, you can plug him in on the first line, second line, third line, and he's going to be terrific for you. But then after that, yeah, we get into that final week leading up to the trade deadline, and to be blunt, excuse my language, shit got weird for a little bit there, because then you started hearing this talk of, well, Lindholm could go to Boston with Jake DeBrusk going to Pittsburgh and Jake Gensel going to Vancouver in a three-way trade. That if it had happened, Isaiah, it would have been the biggest move at the trade deadline in the salary cap era. We've never seen anything like that. I'm almost sorry it didn't happen, because that's just what but yeah, it was a kind of weird for Lindholm, but he doesn't seem to be letting it affect him. And again, he's a rental player there in Vancouver. He knows what the score is. Yeah. He's going to go and he's going to play the best he can. He's going to try and win a Stanley Cup, because the Canucks are definitely among the favorites, no question. So, it was a terrific pickup. But again, it goes to show how, I know Jim Rutherford is not the general manager. It's Patrick Allvin, and Rutherford's the president of hockey ops. But his fingerprints are all over that. I mean, we saw all this stuff when he was in Pittsburgh. We saw it before in Carolina. He wasn't known as Trader Jim for nothing. And not for nothing, the Canucks were the busiest team in the trade market this season. No other team made as many trades as the Canucks did this season.
Yep.
Which is saying something, because they're operating under a tight salary cap, but yet they made it work.
Rutherford always finds a way. I'm just wondering, he's got a hand in the back of Alvin's head. But so what really might have broken apart, or broken open, I should say, the trade market for defensemen is Chris Tanev, 34-year-old defensive defenseman who everybody loves. He's a warrior, a playoff grinder. He goes to the Stars, and that kind of starts everything and depletes Calgary further.
Yeah, and it wasn't a surprise that he went to Dallas. Everybody kind of knew that they really were keen to get him, because they needed that depth, badly needed that depth on the right side of their D behind Miro, Heiskanen. And I mean, the Toronto Maple Leafs, Isaiah, really wanted this guy. I mean, Brad Treliving's the general manager of the Leafs. As you know, he's the former GM of the Flames. He signed Tanev to the Flames 4 years ago. He really wanted him, but they just didn't have the assets or the cap space to make it happen. And Dallas is just sitting there. Yep, we'll do this. So it's going to make Dallas a lot tougher to go for. It's not a big splashy move, but it's one of those ones when you bring in a guy whose game is well suited for the heavy, rugged going of the playoffs, that he could be that missing piece that helps get them over the hump too. I'd say keep an eye on the Stars when we get to the playoffs. They're going to be tough to play against.
Yeah, definitely. And some of those young kids are further along than they were before. And it makes a difference. So I guess the other big addition, because there's three big ones in Vegas, has to be Noah Hannafin. And it's interesting because the belief was that he would really only get traded to a place where he'd be willing to sign long term. Mm-hmm. And I think they tried to accommodate him. And I don't know if that's exactly going to happen with Vegas, but he's a hell of a pickup because he's a great defenseman.
Oh boy, yeah, and right in his prime. I mean, a 27-year-old puck-moving defenseman in his prime. Logs big minutes. I mean, contributes on the power play, contributes to even strength. It was a if we had just gone based on just the Mantha pickup and the Hannafin pickup, we would have said, oh yeah, Golden Knights are among the teams that won the trade deadline. Yeah. Now, what to your point though? Yeah, will he re-sign with them? That's what remains to be seen, because there's a lot of talk that he and his fiance want to sign with a team that's going to be kind of close to home for them, and close to home, as we know, is the Boston area. He's a Boston area boy, so it wouldn't surprise me that honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up with the Bruins this summer. Don Sweeney has been keen to get this guy since his draft year. Mm-hmm. But for the time being, yeah, he ends up going to Vegas. It probably wasn't going to be very easy to send him to maybe a team like Boston. The Bruins were interested, but again, lack of cap space, limited assets. They didn't have what the Golden Knights could offer up. And I think that Hannafin was probably happy with, okay, if I can't go to a team that's kind of close to home, if I can go to one that's going to be a Stanley Cup contender, the defending champion, yeah, I'll take that. So, and as you said, a hell of a move to shore up their blue line there, because again, as I said, they've been just racked with injuries this year. Alec Martinez is on, I believe, he's on injured reserve right now, not LTIR. He's on injured reserve right now for several weeks because he had a procedure on his knee. So that's part and parcel of why they went out and got Hannafin.
Yeah, their IR list is
oh boy,
yeah, it's pretty stacked.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was a great deal for them, and it was I think we got one more big one to go with there. But before that, we have a swap that's going to help both teams, and that's always good to talk about. So Casey Middlestat was, I think, going to be an arbitration eligible RFA, and Bowen Byram is going to add to the defense of the Buffalo Sabres, and he has tremendous potential, but he just hasn't recaptured his cup year success, and it seems to fit a niche for both of those clubs.
Absolutely. Finally, Isaiah, we had an honest-to-God hockey trade. It wasn't buyers getting asset from seller dumping asset. It was player for player, and that was a breath of fresh air. And yes, it will benefit both teams. I was a little surprised to see the Sabres going after another defenseman, but when you look at how stacked they are with young forwards, both currently on the roster and in their farm system, I mean, my gosh, you're going to be seeing new forwards coming out of their system over the next 3 years. I mean, the Sabres you see now are going to look completely different in 2 years' time, But bringing in Byram is going to help them on he's going to help them on their D, and he has had some injury issues, and that is a bit of a concern.
The concussion.
He did have concussions, and but the thing is, when he's healthy, I mean, my God, he's just terrific. He played such a crucial role among many players who played crucial roles for the Avs during their cup run 2 years ago. So he's got just barrels of potential. He's only, I think, 22 years old. So he's still, again, if he stays healthy, playing with that young Sabres team, he fits right into that whole timeline of what they want to do. So that'll be fine for them. But Middlestat, I mean, we heard his name come up about middle of January. There was talk. And I think, by the way, everybody owes Andrew Peters an apology because he was the one who first broke that story, saying that, the Sabres are shopping this guy hard. And it was just like, no, that's not happening. Oh, you don't know. Oh, no. Well, it turns out, they were, because he is arbitration eligible. He's going to be looking for a big raise. And the whole thing was the Sabres did not want to, it's not they didn't want to pay him. It's just they couldn't afford to pay him what he was going to want. So, and because, he's their leading scorer this year,
right.
And their first line center. And he's a terrific two-way center. He's going to fill that second line role for the Avs that they've been trying to fill since Nazem Kadri left town 2 years ago. It was, a deal that really helps both teams. It fills a need, long-standing need for both clubs, but especially for the Avs in that second line center role. So that just makes them a lot more dangerous now.
Right. That's been a bit of a hole, and they were hoping that, I think it was Newhook before they let him go. They gave him the hook. They were hoping that would work out better, and they got Middlestat. Newhook may be a guy who emerges over time.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
they are not. They're here to win now, and Middlestat's still a young player, as you mentioned. If he's still an RFA, then he's still young. But you already have Dylan Cousins and Tage Thompson. When you have guys like Matt Savoy and the other kid that just
you got Coolidge, you got Zach Benson, you got so many.
Zach Benson, right? Yeah, they have a surfeit. I wish the Flyers we could do a deal with them because the Flyers have a dearth of centers. But so good on them, and it's going to turn out hopefully well for both teams. So we're down to the final two. Let's go with probably the most pursued winger, and it was Jake Gensel, formerly of the Pittsburgh Penguins, who swing a deal for what many feel was less than value to the Carolina Hurricanes. And he's a clutch guy. I mean, he was one of the few guys that consistently did well with Sidney Crosby, who is not as easy to play with as people think. He wasn't like Mario. Mario can make like stars out of guys. it's just Sidney thinks the game is such a high level, and Gensel is able to keep up with that. So that bodes well for what the Hurricanes are looking for out of that player.
Yeah, he should be able to adjust quite well to whatever center that he's skating alongside with when he comes back from his. He could actually be back in action, I think, by the end of this week. So this is going to be very interesting to see where he slots in. But there's another guy that, if you have concerns about Kuznetsov, we're not sure about how things are going to work out with him. But with Gensel, there's no question. This guy's in his prime. He's a 2-time 40-goal scorer, won a Stanley Cup with Pittsburgh. He's a proven playoff performer. This guy scored, like you said, he's clutch. And that's the kind of scorer that they wanted. The Hurricanes broke away from type because normally in the recent past, they have not made trades for big name, big ticket guys who are going to be kind of rental players, or the risk of being rental player. They didn't like going after guys who are going to be UFAs. They preferred, guys they could keep under contract, but they kind of broke from type. And I think for a very good reason. A scorer like Gensel doesn't come along in the market very often. And if you're in a position to make that move, you do it. And who knows if he plays well for them, if he helps them win a cup or at least get to the final, they could re-sign him. I would not put that out of the realm of possibility. They could re-sign him. They'll have the cap space. They could make it happen. They might have to maybe move out somebody like Marty Natchez or something like that. Yeah. But they could make it happen. And I just think just having Gensel alone makes the Hurricanes that much better and gives them that piece of offensive ammunition that they really have been missing in the last 3-4 years.
Yeah, no question. So the number one trade in my book, the one that shocked the entire hockey world, and the one that recalls a line from a movie called Glengarry Glen Ross.
Lay it on me.
There's so many. It's one of the great movies of all time. But it's the one where Ed Harris walks in and says, "The rich get richer. That's the law of the land." And it's the Vegas Golden Knights getting Tomas Hertl from San Jose in what was looked upon by virtually everybody as an underwhelming return for San Jose, and one of those, what's Mike Greer doing out there? But, okay, forget about that. Look at the Vegas Golden Knights with Hanifin, Mantha, and now Tomas Hertl. And he, like I said, I think I tweeted out, there is no hurdle that the Vegas Golden Knights can't overcome unless it's Tomas.
Well played, sir. I'm sorry I missed that tweet. Damn it was a very, very busy day. If I had seen that, I would have laughed out loud. Oh, that was good. Well, if I may also borrow a line from Glengarry Glen Ross, I think Kelly McCrimmon has proven coffee is for closers.
That's right.
Put that coffee down, Kyle Dubas. Coffee's for closers.
That's right.
Oh boy. Well, very, very quickly though, first to your point about the Sharks. I mean, yeah, I know that people were kind of looking at the return and going, what the hell is Mike Greer doing? He got schooled or he got taken advantage of. I say nay on that. And the reason why is they moved Hertl because they needed to clear the cap room. They wanted to get that big contract off their books. And they did it without having to retain a ton to do it. They still get a first-round pick. They still get a prospect. They got basically the Golden Knights' top prospect. Everything else, okay, not as much. But that creates room and that creates space for Mike Greer to start bringing in other players, or to, perhaps he can use that additional draft pick, which, if the Golden Knights win the cup again, will be dead last in the first round. You could flip that. You could use that as draft cap or as trade capital at the draft and flip it to a team that needs a first round pick to get yourself something decent. So, you could say, well, could he have gotten better? Well, maybe, but the market is what the market is. And this was one of the very few teams that Tomas Hertl would agree to waive his no trade clause to go to. He had a 3-team trade clause. Yeah. I don't think the Golden Knights were on that list, but he had no problem going to Vegas. So I don't think the deal is quite so bad in the Sharks' favor as it seems to be. Time will tell, but I don't think it's that bad. But for the Golden Knights, though, you're right. Like, this was just nobody saw it. Tomas Hertl was not even mentioned as a trade candidate. You know, the last time his name surfaced in the rumor mill, because of course it's my job to keep track of this stuff, was back around November when it kind of got floated that maybe he or Couture might accept a trade or might ask to be traded, because that was back when the Sharks were having their first really bad long losing skid. And then it just went away because Mike Greer said, unless these guys come to me and say they want out, I'm not trading them. And that was the end of it. They never came up again. And then boom, 1 minute, I think 5 minutes before the deadline, here on TSN, I'm watching on TSN up here, and Bob McKenzie, the Bob father, says, yep. Are you ready for this? You know, he says, it's a big one. You know, the Golden Knights have done something, and it's a big one. And as soon as he had Hertl, it was just, whoa, because nobody saw that coming. But he's just going to fit in so well there. Now, currently right now, yeah, Hertl is sidelined. He had his knee done back in mid-February, but he's expected to be back by mid-April. And I think he's going to slot in well there with the Golden Knights. Big power center. He's got plenty of experience too. He went to the Stanley Cup final with the Sharks back in 2016. He's a creative scorer. He kills penalties. He can win faceoffs for you. Just a terrific all-around forward, big, strong guy. Any team would have loved to have gotten this guy. And the fact that the Golden Knights did, it pissed some people off, but that's the nature of the business. Don't go crying because Kelly McCrimmon can do a better job of managing his cap space and his LTIR than everybody else.
Yeah, I think the Vegas Golden Knights operate the way the Flyers did back in the day. You know,
be aggressive. Be aggressive. You're trying to make your team better. You know, you are where you are right now. Future assets are used as trade capital, you know, to bring in players that can help you now. So not every team can do this. It's not going to work for everybody, but it's certainly working for them.
Yeah, right now, and they're among the favorites. There's no doubt about it.
Well, now they've got to get themselves higher up in the standings. I mean, they made this move. There's I don't want to say there's panic there, but there was legitimate concern, and I think that's part of the reason why they made the moves that they made, Isaiah, because they went from being, you know, top, you know, sitting very comfortably in the top three in the Pacific Division to clinging on to a wild card berth. Now the teams behind them are about 6 points back, so they've got a cushion, but still things weren't going well. And let's face it, these trades wouldn't have happened if Mark Stone hadn't gone on LTIR. But trust me, folks, when I say this, they would have preferred Mark Stone be healthy and not have, they would be happy to make do without Hertl there, without Mantha there, you know, without Hanifin. They would prefer to have a nice, healthy roster with Mark Stone and Alec Martinez and Jay Theodore and other guys who've been sidelined. They're not the same team without Mark Stone. That's very obvious. They'd been playing very differently since he got hurt. So they needed to have something to shore up. And by using the LTIR space to make these moves, they got it done. And I applaud them for it. That's what a general manager does.
Yeah, you're right. That I said that because I don't follow the standings that close, like the wild card. They are ahead of St. Louis by 6 points.
No,
and Minnesota, and they have a game in hand on both of them. So, I mean, in pretty good shape if they can, like you said, if they can get it together. So, I would expect they will be able to close that deal. But you never know, you know.
Yeah, but at least with Hertl, they've got him for 6 more years. He's not a rental. Mantha and Hanifin are likely rentals. Mantha for sure is a rental. Hanifin probably, but Hertl's got 6 more years, so he'll be part of the roster going forward. So,
he's good through 29. If
you're going to go big like that, you go big for a guy with term left on his contract.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was the big one. That's the big shocker. Well, you know, looking at the clubs, which ones would you say maybe the 5 teams that helped themselves the most if you had to maybe pick 4 or 5?
Okay, well, in random order. I mean, I know what they are, but to try Excuse me. But obviously Vegas, as we just talked about, for all the reasons I just prattled on about, yeah, they obviously helped themselves. They're not going to give up that Stanley Cup easily. Colorado, of course, bringing in Sean Walker, as we said, making that swap to address that need for second line center, but bringing Casey Middlestat. Yeah, they're a better team now, by having done those moves. Carolina, of course, bringing in, a proven playoff scorer like Jake Gensel gives them that additional bit of firepower that could put them over the top. I would look at also Winnipeg, by bringing in Toffoli and earlier bringing in Sean Monahan. They certainly helped themselves a lot. You could say Winnipeg, or I'm not Winnipeg, sorry. You could say Vancouver, though that one was kind of, a little further away, but still, bring in Lindholm. That doesn't hurt anything. That's not something you can ignore. It's funny. Lindholm was talked about so much in the first half of the season, and once he goes to Vancouver, because they've got all that exciting young players there, that he's kind of been lost in the shuffle. I think he kind of likes that, actually. But those teams that I just rattled off there, I think they're the ones that definitely did the most to help themselves. As we head towards the playoffs, now that we're in that stretch run.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was really exciting. And we turn to look at the Flyers, they came into the season with a certain expectation. They've exceeded that. The team has tried to kind of straddle the fence and thread the needle, if you will, in terms of rewarding the guys for the effort that they put out, like we talked about earlier with by letting go of Sean Walker, but signing Nick Seeler. And, they got the first round draft pick. They took a contract. So they weaponized their cap space. And then they made a couple moves because of the defensive injuries they have with Ristolainen and Drysdale. Both have, I'm not sure. I know the Drysdale is a shoulder. I'm not sure. Ristolainen is not as well. He hasn't been quite right because I don't know if you heard the story. Ristolainen had to go to military service in Finland.
Yes.
And
they all have to.
Yeah. And it curtailed his training for the season, and it affected him. Mm-hmm. And he hasn't really been quite the same. So he sustained some type of injury and played well when he came back, and then he was unfortunately re-injured. So anyway, they get Eric Johnson, and for a fourth round draft pick, they were part of the deal. Was it with which deal was it? Where they get was it the Hannafin trade where they got a fifth round draft pick?
Yeah. That was a three-way deal they had to do, to kind of spread the cap dollars around. Yeah.
So they got an asset which makes up for their fifth round draft pick that they had to send to Colorado. Yeah. In the Sean Walker trade, because I actually sent a 25, I think, fifth round pick. Correct me there. And then the last thing was Eric Johnson for a fourth round pick.
And that's a good pickup to them. Again, plenty of experience there. Stanley Cup winner with Colorado as well. He's excellent penalty killer. At this stage of his career, he's not like he was earlier, obviously, but he's an excellent penalty killer. He's very well regarded, plenty of experience, shot blocker extraordinaire. So, he plays a Torts type of game on D. So he'll be a good fit there. Good voice in the room, I think, as well. But it is kind of funny, Isaiah. You think back, I believe the last time I was on, you had me on, was back around the start of the season, and we were talking about the Flyers, and none of us had any expectation they would be where they are right now. They've been hanging on to that third place in the Metro for two and a half months now. They've been there.
I think it's since December.
Yeah, it's been December. It's been a while. They've been hanging just when you think it looks they'll run off a losing streak, and you think, oh, here we go. Here comes the collapse. And yet they rally back. So, and, with the whole unfortunate thing with Carter Hart as well, losing their experienced goaltender. But, Erson's been playing well for them. I think he's definitely making the case to be, maybe the starter going forward. I don't know if you do that long term, if they go out in the market this summer and bring in somebody more experienced, if Carter Hart's done, if his playing career is over. But Erson's played well. In the games that I've watched him, where I've sat down and had a chance to watch Flyers games from start to finish, he's looked good. He's looked really good.
He's just played about I think he's right around the 50 game mark for NHL games.
And that's heavy. That's a heavy workload for him. But so far, he's not showing any signs of slowing down. I don't think we're going to see Cal Peterson again, unfortunately. That's the less said, the better. I know. Sorry, didn't mean to touch on.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I think the plan is
Yeah.
Alexei Kolosov is a Russian goalie who just
Yeah.
completed his season with Dynamo Minsk. And I think they're going to have him in, I think, in the AHL for a year. So they're very comparable in their potential.
Yeah.
The poise and recovery ability and the mental strength of somebody like Ersan is very admirable. It's a quality that you need. He has enough athleticism, just enough size. And I think he's definitely somebody who's going to be the starter going forward. If the Flyers do go out and get a backup, it will probably be along the lines of a Jake Allen type.
Yeah. Somebody to be like a mentor who's got the experience, can spell you off when you need to be spelled off, and you can trust to put him in there, especially if you're in a tight situation or, in a tight stretch of games where you don't want to lose ground. You could put him in there for you. He's not going to blow it for you. He's going to play well. So
yeah, absolutely.
Somebody like that. So things have been working out a lot better than I think anybody really expected for the Flyers this year. They've been among my pleasant surprises of the season, how well they've done. And it's to Daniel Breer's credit. I mean, I know going into the season, we all figured, and I think he did too, he was going to be a seller. But things didn't quite work out the way expected. But okay, he sold, but he didn't gut. Okay, he didn't trade. Scott Lawton was mentioned so often, but I just couldn't see them moving their glue guy when they're jockeying for a playoff spot. You got to give your fans something to grab onto here when they've been expected to rebuild, but you got to really give your players that opportunity. They're playing to win. They're it's like, look, here you are hanging on to third place in the Met. You've got a playoff spot sewn up here. If you don't gut the team now because, well, I'm not going to deviate from my long-term plan of rebuilding. And again, I think it's to Breer's credit how well he's done so far. I mean, the bringing in Drysdale, and he handled the Cutter Gauthier thing, I think, pretty well, all things considered. It's unfortunate what happened to Drysdale with the injury, and let's hope that it's nothing much more seriously. But if it's a shoulder,
it's not as bad. From what we understand, it's not as bad as the injury that knocked him out.
Yeah,
in Anaheim. So I think what they said was he got by without the worst case scenario.
And that, I read that.
Shoulders, right? Yeah, when it comes to shoulders, it's still, it's a big deal. It's a very important joint.
Yeah, hopefully he can get back. Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully he can get back in action in the next 2 to 3 weeks. If he can, he'll give them a big boost going forward. But I still like where they are, and you don't give up on these guys. You definitely don't. They're not giving up. Torts isn't giving up. God, he was feisty against Tampa Bay. I know it was a crappy game, but oh my God. I'm telling you, he does things for effect. He does things for effect. That wasn't just, I refuse to believe, he just lost it. No. That was done for effect. I just like your owner saying, yeah, whatever the fine is, we'll pay it.
Well, that's the awful one for all mentality.
Yeah, but he shouldn't have said that out loud, right? Because then Bettman says, "Oh, well, in that case, here's 2 games. I was just going to fine him, but if you're going to be a smart ass, here's 2 games."
Yeah, I don't know. The officiating was so hideous in that game that they more or less covering up for the referee. But hey, one thing I forgot is the Flyers finally gave up on Wade Allison and are now taking a chance on a very similar age player in Denis Gurianov. And, he had a great season and good playoff with the Dallas Stars. And he's 6'3", he's got a lot of speed, it's kind of like Steve Blass syndrome. He's never really been able to recover, what he had in Dallas. And he's really doing, I think, his 4th team now. But so he's another guy they took care of,
Yeah, he was in Montreal too for a while. Now it just, he has the tools, but it just, the consistency just, it can drive you crazy. But it doesn't hurt to try, right? Doesn't hurt to bring the guy in, see how he does. You never know. Sometimes if you've got the room and it's an affordable thing to do, hey, why not? Plug it in, see what happens, right?
Yeah, nothing. Because Wade Allison had fallen out of favor with the Flyers.
Yeah.
Torts liked his spunk, but he didn't do the things they wanted him to do. He sees himself as much of an East-West guy instead of a North-South guy, and he couldn't stay healthy. So I think, if he can look, I always think of guys that got hurt earlier in their career, and you thought that they were just headed toward the permanent IR. Justin Williams was just hurt a lot.
Yeah.
A hell of a lot. He had a great career. I don't have to tell you. I think he's headed for the Hall of Fame. And Seidenberg was another player who ended up in Boston. Yeah, he did miss a lot of time with Carolina and Boston, but he had a nice career. So, I mean, of course, on our fingers. Good. Wade Allison really is a good guy. So,
yeah.
That's the story from here. Lyle, I just wanted to say thanks for coming on. Any final thoughts for what you think is going to happen vis-a-vis the Flyers or just any team? Hey, watch out for this squad or anything.
Well, definitely the Flyers. I'm looking forward to see how they cope here down the stretch. It's not going to be easy. I mean, they're in a good spot right now, but yeah, you can't really sit back on your laurels and think they've got this clinch. But when Torch is your coach, they're not going to be resting on their laurels here. But I think they got a pretty good shot, and I definitely think it's something that their players will have earned, and it's good to give the fans, Flyer fans like yourself, some hope when you went into this season with very low expectations. In terms of teams to kind of keep an eye on, oh gosh, it's so hard to say. You're always looking for that Cinderella club that's going to come in and. At one point I thought it was going to be Detroit, but they're it looks like the wheels are getting ready to wobble and come off. And meanwhile, you've got the Islanders who, they initially were having some growing pains there under Patrick Roy as their head coach, but boy, they've been tearing it up. Now they lost last night, but they had won 6 straight and they're right in there. So that's kind of a team you can't really turn your back on. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Toronto. I haven't mentioned Toronto very much here because they really didn't do anything. They really couldn't afford to, as I said. But it's really going to be interesting to see what happens with them because it's, we know they've got great scorers. They've got a kind of a so-so defense, and the goaltending is dealer's choice. What's it going to be?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a team that, of course, up here in Canada, it's just Leafs Nation dominates everything, which is sickening for those of us who are fans of other Canadians clubs. I gave it away, Canadians. Yeah, but it's going to be really interesting to see what comes out of that, Isaiah, because if they have another early playoff exit, I think that's the end of Sheldon Keefe as their head coach. Whether they turn around and decide to trade Mitch Marner, because that's going to be the whole thing that'll come up. Because they got Austin Matthews and William Nylander signed a long-term contracts, but Mitch Marner's going into the final year of his contract, and that's going to be the whole willy, won't they? Kind of like what happened with Matthews and Nylander last year before they re-signed. Right. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with them. Otherwise, right now, it's like kind of wide open. There's like 6 or 7 teams I could look at and go, yeah, they could win the Stanley Cup. Colorado, Vegas, Boston, Florida, Vancouver, Winnipeg, Carolina, now that they brought in that score, the Rangers, of course. Like I said, I can't really look at one team and go, oh yeah, them all the way. I mean, last year, we all looked at Boston and said, yeah, who's going to stop them? Hello, Florida, right here. And they're the ones who went to the finals. So yeah, but this year, I kind of like the fact when you don't have a runaway favorite, because it gives you some different options that you can kind of pick at. It definitely, because it's no fun when it's just one team running away with it.
Well, I mean, back in the day, it's like the Canadians were the Yankees, and then occasionally well back in the day, it would be the Leafs or the Bruins or something. But it's since the expansion, really. I mean, since the Flyers won, it's been open season, and of course, as I say that, you did have dynasties. You had the Canadians, then you had the Islanders, then you had the Oilers, So it has been a period of dynasties, and then the cap came in. That kind of really changed everything.
Yeah, but if you build your team right, I mean, we had a couple of mini dynasties there. We
Right.
had the Penguins in there, winning 2 in a
The
row.
Hawks.
We had Chicago winning three cups in 6 years. So
LA won a couple.
LA winning 2 in 3 years. So you do kind of get that's about the closest you're going to get to dynasties now. I think if a team wins, I mean, Tampa Bay had a chance to win 3 in a row there recently, but it as it just went to show, it's so hard to keep a Stanley Cup team together, and that's ultimately what proved to be the Lightning's undoing. If there hadn't been a salary cap, they would have won 3 in a row easily. But
you can definitely make that case. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is what it is now. And so that's why I said, yeah, I mean, in a way, it's good for parity, to have 6 or 7 or 8 teams that you could look at and go, geez, yeah, any one of these could win the cup. It is kind of good that way, because at least it gives fans some excitement. And then half those teams will get knocked out in the first round and everybody just goes, oh, this is terrible. So
and the debate goes on and on.
On and on, I say.
On and on.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, Lyle, why don't you tell the folks I know they can go to spectorshockey.net, but where else can people find your work and catch you on social media?
Well, as you said at the top of the show, I'm a contributing writer to Bleacher Report. I also do my NHL Rumor Roundup with the Hockey News. And just because the trade deadline's over, folks, that doesn't mean the rumors have stopped, because now we're into looking at who could get traded in the offseason and which players are going to become unrestricted free agents and all that. So the rumor mill never stops. Yes, I also write for The Guardian here on Prince Edward Island. And if you read German, I also write for Ice Hockey News in Germany. So that's where you can find my work there. And of course, Spector's Hockey on the it's called X now.
Yes. Some people don't. Yeah.
Twitter and also on Facebook. So
fantastic. Lyle, thanks so much for coming on. Look forward to having you on again very soon.
Always a pleasure, Isaiah. Thanks again.
All right, man. You take care. Okay. So that was Lyle Richardson from Spector's Hockey. Great to hear from him and get his perspective. So we're going to call it a show. Just wanted to remind everybody that you can check us out on social media. On X, you can catch the O&B Puckcast at O&B Puck, at O&B Puck. Also on Getter, at O&B Puckcast, at O&B Puckcast. Also, if you could rate and subscribe to the O&B Puckcast, we're on every major platform, including Apple, Spotify, iHeart, TuneIn, Amazon Audible, Deezer. We're also on YouTube. Just plug in there, O&B Puckcast. And we also have a Facebook page. And it really helps move us up the charts when people are looking for a Philadelphia Flyer podcast. So until next time, I think we're going to do a show about 7 to 10 days from now. Thanks for listening again, our second show this week, and take care.